Hi guys! It's so good to have you once again on this session of our government tutorials. We've been talking so much about the elements of government, and in this session we are going to be looking at the structures of governance. And at the end of this session, you should be able to compare the various political structures of governance. That's our basic aim in this lesson. And so we have basically three structures of governance, and that includes the Unitary System, the Federal System, and the Confederal System. Please do not mistake these systems for the forms of government that we have earlier discussed in our previous videos. So we are going to be looking at the features, the reasons for adoption, the merits and demerits of these structures of governance. Let's begin with the unitary government. And just like the name suggests, unitary, unified, centralized, it means that all powers and authorities for running a state are concentrated in the hands of a single central government. That is unitary system of government. And so powers are not shared between the central government and the component units of a country. When you look at Britain, France, Italy, you find that these countries practice unitary form of government. Now, what are the features of this form of government, this system of government? It is a form of government that is practiced in a homogeneous state, a state that does not, a country. You know, when I say state in this regard, I mean a country. So a state that do not have so many ethnic groups, that have just a small number of people in the country, homogeneity, that is not so much ethnic groups. And in this system, there's a central government, but power or authority can be delegated, all right? And there is parliamentary supremacy. By that I mean the parliament is the supreme body in the country. It's even above the constitution of the government. Now, there is no constitutional division of power. Power is centralized, and of course there is no conflict of authority, and the constitution of a unitary state is flexible. It is not rigid. It is very flexible. Now, why do we adopt this system of government? Where you have a small country or a homogeneous country where there are not so many tribes or ethnicity, then you can adopt this system. And it's also good for efficient administration. So power just moves from the center and they are sure of what is happening in the component units. It's also useful for control and accountability and popular support of the government by the people. And by that, we'll be looking at the merits of this system. Of course, it is less costly because power is in the center. They don't have to share the powers amongst component units. There are no duplication of powers or functions, and so it is less costly to operate. And action or the process of decision making is quicker because it just has to be from the center. Authority or decisions move from the center to the component units. And the constitution is very much flexible. So this system of governance promotes a strong government, no challenge from the subordinate units. There are no conflicts of authority, no red tapeism or bureaucracy. What is red tapeism? You find out that there are so many processes to follow to do some things by government parastatals. All those things are not necessary. And so where you operate a unitary form of government, everything comes from the center downward. So there is no space for bureaucracy. And now it doesn't also accommodate tribalism. And where there are no traces of tribalism, it would therefore promote unity. But then there are demerits to this system. Of course, it would not pay particular attention to the local areas, unlike where we have authority or subordinate units who would also look at the problems or the issues at the local areas. And this system can also accommodate dictatorship. So because power is at the center, it could make the person who is in charge to become a tyrant or become a dictator, and that's not good for governance. And this system is only workable in homogeneous states. So countries that have too many ethnic tribes like Nigeria, countries that are so large in population would not need this kind of government, and development can be slow because everything goes from up down. And then there are no political participation because the people are just there. They cannot be involved or carried along in the process of political administration. So everything revolves and just exists in the center. Now, the center of decision making is so far from the people. Everything is at the center, and so the people at the local areas have no part. And then it could bring about high rate of unemployment because when the powers are separated or are shared among subordinate units, you find out that government would raise institutions, parastatals, where jobs will be created for people to be employed to do. And the minority could be oppressed and dominated by the majority tribe. These are the disadvantages to this system. Now let's look at the federal system. A federal state is one which has a constitutional division of government powers among the three tiers of government, and that's the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And that's what we operate here in Nigeria. In certain matters, the federal or the central authority represents the whole, especially matters of currency, defense, external affairs. They represent the country, but then powers actually are shared amongst the three levels of government. It also extends to the state level and the local levels. Now, why would we adopt this system of governance? Because of the nearness of the federated units. One state leads to another, one locality is very close to the next. So the federated units are almost together, only a matter of space and time, and the size of the country. Now, this system of government is applicable for government so large, so the powers are shared amongst the federal, the state, and the local authorities, just so the country can be captured. And the minority tribes are very much protected because they also have their place in governance. Now, it's also applicable for countries that have diversities in culture and ethnicity. And for security reasons, so when we have a pool of so many states coming together as a country, you find out they have so much strength, military strength and force to defend their country. And common historical background, if you were colonized or if you had a master, it is very much possible that you would take after your master. And going by our colonial masters, what they left us with, this is a system that is very easy for us to adopt. And for geographical contiguity, that means a big word, but contiguity here means the nearness of the areas, the geographical areas in the country. Now, what are the features of this governance? Constitutional division of power. Power is separated, we had said that. Powers are derived from the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law in the country. Powers are separated. We have the bicameral legislature, the Supreme Court, equal representation, autonomy of units, and grassroots political participation. These are the features of this system of government. Now, what are the merits? Of course, all the ethnic groups are accurately and integrated into the system of government. Autonomy. Every unit is allowed to exist. No one is to dominate the other. And federalism brings government closer because you can be a part at the local level, and it eliminates arbitrary rule. So no one is the dictator. There are so many persons to consult and to seek before any rule or decision can be made. And it reduces the workload. Imagine that just one person has to oversee the affairs of everyone in Nigeria. You find out that that would be very tasking. So it reduces the workload and it provides us with employment opportunities. The Constitution is supreme. And of course, there is grassroots political participation. But then there are disadvantages to this system too. Regionalism, that's one. That means people pay more allegiance to their region, to their state, unlike where it's at the center where everyone has to pay allegiance to the central government. So regionalism is one thing that you don't want in governance. And then there is possibility of conflict. Too many tribes, too many languages, too many differences, it could lead to conflict, and it is costly to run. So many people, so many tribes, so many localities to attend to. It does not allow for even development. Yes, so some parts may be more developed than the other. Maybe because the one or the president, whoever is at the head, is from a particular tribe, it's very easy for his area to be more developed at the expense of other areas. And functions can be duplicated. There could be delay in the execution of national issues. The constitution is rigid. It's not easy to amend the constitution of a federal state. And there is no uniformity in administration. There is also this problem of federal character. And so when political appointments are to be made, all the constituents of the country must be considered. So this system does not allow for merit. So people merit the position, but they cannot be appointed because all the parts must be captured. And there is this fear of domination, that the majority tribe would dominate the minority tribe. And there is this threat of secession, like what's happening with the Igbo nation. They want to leave, they want to secede from the country. That's one of the things with this system of government. And then over time, we've always had boundary disputes, tribes and people who share common boundaries fighting over land and over mineral resources. These and many more are the mishaps to this system of government. And we will be taking the last one now. That's the Confederal System. And now confederation may be defined as a league of sovereign states with loose political arrangements in which the autonomous states, that is, the independent states, come together to form a union in which the central government is subordinate to the component governments. That means the center is very weak. The functions of government still resides with the component government. So there is allegiance to the independent states, unlike the center, where allegiance ought to be paid. Now, it is a voluntary association, so no one compels anyone to come in. It's a voluntary association of countries, and then the center is very weak. An example is the former Confederation of Senegambia. That was a relationship between Senegal and Gambia, which brought about a confederation of Senegambia. What are the features of this system? Consultation. Yes. So for any decision to be made, all the component parts must be consulted, and there must be consensus before that decision can be reached. And the union is loose because allegiance is paid to the component unit, to the countries, and not to the center. There is no effective executive authority. There are no national armed forces. The diplomatic representations go back to the component units. And there is right of secession. Just the same way it is voluntary to join, you also have your right to secede. And the political system is very unstable. There is no guarantee, no effective central authority. Membership is voluntary, and sovereignty still resides with the component units. But there are merits, or there are advantages to this system. Yes, this pool of countries that come together benefit from one another, and so they have the union of armed forces. In the case where there are maybe defense issues in any of the countries, all the countries come together to fight for the one country that is affected. They have mutual benefits economically, socially, and otherwise. And of course, it is voluntary, and so you still operate in your government at ease without any restrictions or impositions from the countries. Now, there is control over their internal affairs. Of course, I had said that the component units still have control over their internal affairs, and obedience is to the component units, not to the center. The states who come together are equal. No one supersedes the other. there is consensus, there is common purpose, and of course, it also boosts economic factors and expands the markets of these countries. Now, what are the demerits to this system of government? Instability. The center is so unstable because there is no allegiance paid to the center. The center is so weak and loose. Everyone has the right to come in at what point and leave at any point. There is no effective central authority. You can secede whenever you want to go. There is no spirit of nationality. There is delay in effecting issues because all the countries must agree. There must be consensus before any decision can be effected. And the union is loose. No national armed forces. Obedience is to one government, which is the component government, and there are separate diplomatic representation. With this, we have come to the end of this session, and I am very glad that I have been able to make you understand the various structures of governance. Do look out for subsequent videos where we'll be talking about so many other things about the subject government. Do have a good time. Thank you.